Awesome. So welcome everyone. Um, Welcome to all those that are watching on live, and for those that will watch the video. If you are watching on live, put live #live in the comments. If you are going to watch this as a replay, put #replay. So I know, just kind of get some stats on who's watching from, from what kind of venue you're watching on. That would be awesome. So welcome everyone to another session of Heels on Fire. My name is Debbie Balfour, and I am the admin founder of RE Investing in Heels. So just just go through a few logistics for today. So we'll have another session of RE Investing in Heels, of Heels on Fire, sorry, on next Wednesday. And Brandon Leonard is here, and he's here today, and he's going to be the one presenting next week for us. A little bit of a treat on U.S. investing. So Brandon will be doing that next week. And but for October 25th and November 1st, I won't be having a session because I will be in England. Some of you might have noticed that I've posted that I lost my father-in-law yesterday. So unfortunately, we weren't able to see him before he passed away. But I was selfishly hoping that he would be there by the time we went in on October 20th. But for his sake, it was good. He was in a lot of pain. So yeah, so it will be tough to do that, to do these sessions while I'm there. I'm also there to try to help my mother-in-law get back on her feet. So, but then when the following week after that, I'm back and we can get going again. Okay. A little about me. I am a real estate investor and a real estate investing success coach. I have 4 years as a real estate investor with a portfolio of 6 properties in BC and Alberta. I had more and have sold down, done some buying and selling. My expertise lie in the areas of joint venture partnering, creative financial strategies, doing the BRRRR, the buy, renovate, rent, and refinance and repeat, and looking at maximizing returns through various rental strategies, meaning long-term, short-term, and mid-term rentals. So I do all of the above. I'm also investing passively in private lending and private equity, apartment funds, land development, syndicated mortgages, that perspective. And I'm just going to be starting to kick off raising capital for a land development. So that's my new strategy that I'm centering along with my coaching. I'll be working on land development is my next one. And so stay tuned. I'm going to be getting my partners and their contacts too, to help me do a land development learning series. So that should be exciting. We can all learn from it. So that's coming up. As a real estate investing success coach, I help real estate investors create their personalized strategy and scale efficiently so that they can ditch the 9-to-5 while enjoying financial freedom. By figuring out what your personalized real estate investing strategy is, you're able to take a straight line to investing instead of either trying a lot of different things and wasting time and in some cases money or opportunity, or suffering from overwhelm and analysis paralysis and then feeling stuck. So that's my niche there. I do have a pilot program that I'm releasing on Monday, and I only have 2 seats left. So it's called Real Estate Investing Jumpstart. It does exactly that. We go through and we analyze, go through its different factors to analyze what your real estate investing identity is, and then compare them to all the different strategies to help you figure out. So by the time you finish this program, you're able to pinpoint exactly what strategy you want to work on and be able to come out with a plan. on that. So I have 2 seats left on that. It's only $97. This is the only time it's going to be that price. It's at 90% off presently because it is my pilot program. So it's for 5 weeks. It's online, 45 minutes per week in bite-sized videos, and then 1 hot seat coaching per week of 1 hour where I will answer questions on that. You'll get worksheets. I'm all about teach, coach, implement as you go. Yeah. So you can scan the QR code if you'd like to sign up for that one. And then I have a second one coming up in November, on November 20th, around Facebook lead generation. So I did a challenge around Facebook, LinkedIn, and ChatGPT and networking, and it was in such demand, and everybody was so interested in it that I decided to do a deep dive into Facebook lead generation for real estate investors. So that one's coming up on the 20th, and I have 10 seats left on that one. I'm keeping them very small at only 15. Right, that one is also a 5-week program with the same sort of structure as the Jumpstart. It's 45 minutes in videos per week, along with worksheets and hot seat coaching, one per week. So if you're interested in that, scan the QR code. If you'd like to find out more first before you book it to find out if this is right for you, please book a discovery call with me, or message me, and we'll get you in the calendar for that. Today, I have a special guest. I have Bill here from California, and Bill and I met as coaches on a call and in a workshop recently, and found out what he was doing. And I thought I'd take every opportunity I can to get guest speakers on our session to help our group of investors learn as much as possible and grow. So Bill is actually working on his program around, construction management. And I asked him to come and speak to us a little bit about mastering the contract selection process. So he's going to go through 4 ways to select your ideal contractor. So a little bit about Bill. He's worked in the construction industry since graduating from college in 1974, and he's managed over 500 million of construction work from corporate, institutional, and private development clients. His clients include Sony Pictures Entertainment, Television Academy, Warner Brothers, all these these big names here. Obviously, he's from California, so Abbott and CIM. And he started his construction management company in 2004, where he earned his certificate for construction management certification in 2016. So Bill has got lots of experience. He's very passionate about really sharing his experience around construction so that others could learn from it and make good choices, whether you're on the construction management side, or in many of our cases where we're looking to hire contractors and trades. And I asked Bill to talk to us a bit about how do we do that properly and how do we build those relationships. So I am going to stop sharing now, Bill, and I will hand it over to you.
Okay, let's see if I can do this without blowing everything up here. Okay.
I promise you won't blow anything up.
Now, just out of curiosity, I haven't done this on the Zoom. Are my notes on the bottom here, or?
I don't see nothing shared as yet. So go into share screen on the bottom.
Okay. Let's see. Ah, there we go. Let's see. Okay.
So Kim is joining us from Colorado too. Yep, I'm seeing notes on the bottom.
You are okay. Well, I'm gonna put it on play here.
Yeah, you probably.
Let's see. All right, full screen. My,
Not a, yep, now we are. Yep.
okay, little bit of a delay there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as Debbie mentioned, I'm so glad to be here today. This is, and I want to thank Debbie for inviting me. We've known each other for a whole, what, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, Debbie? But this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because it's probably one of the most important decisions that owner will make on their project. And of course, I'm going to talk about selecting a contractor, and I realize that most of you that are going to be watching this are investors, but you're investing in a project and you're either going to be involved with selecting that contractor or you're going to engage a party that's going to select that contractor. So there's a lot of other decisions that need to be made way in advance of selecting that contractor. And so I want to talk about that because there's kind of like a preamble to getting the right person on board. And it doesn't matter whether you're building a house. Now, what I'm going to go through today might not be that great if you're doing a $50,000 remodel, but if you're talking about bigger projects, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, private equity type projects, all of this is going to apply. It's kind of a universal thing that you need to do before you start your project. So the next slide, I'm going to, let's see here. I want to get that little thing out of the way there.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to the notes one. Oh, okay, there we go. We're at full screen again.
Is okay? Do you see a welcome screen now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay. So first I want to tell you who I am. As Debbie mentioned, I'm Bill Honnold. I've been involved with the building industry for close to a half a century now. Now I know what you're thinking. This guy looks too young to have that kind of experience, but I assure you, I've been around that long. So you can do the math. And during this time, I've worked in the concrete construction industry. I've worked for general contractors. And in 1902, I made my debut into the construction management industry when I went to work for Sony Pictures Entertainment in 1992. Sony had just bought the studio in Culver City from MGM or Coca-Cola, and the studio was run down. It had been around for 80, 90 years, and nobody had put any money into it. So they needed an in-house construction manager to manage the $125 million renovation of the studio. So that was one of my first, well, that was actually one of my first big projects. Multiple teams, and it's probably not anything that most of you will ever face because it was a large campus project. And while we were renovating the studio, it was obviously in operation. There was shooting going on all the sound stages. We had to be sensitive about sound, so it was a challenging project. And since then, I've been managing projects, as Debbie mentioned, for entertainment companies, Television Academy. That's that picture in the upper right-hand corner. That's their new headquarters building. Warner Brothers Studios, Sony, of course. CIM is a large private equity firm, a $5 billion private equity firm in Southern California. And the picture in the upper left-hand corner of the screen is a 20-story adaptive reuse of an old office building into apartment buildings. I did that project. The one right below it with a kind of geometric screening on the outside was also an adaptive reuse of an old office building into a parking structure. So I've had a very, very fortunate career working for a lot of great clients. And that's kind of a snapshot of what I've done. Let's see here. The next slide is what we'll cover today, and that's the critical role of selecting the right contractor, my 4 simple steps to selecting the right contractor, and a bonus that I want to talk about is dispute resolution, if you ever get to that point. And we don't want to get to that point, because my motto is we either succeed together or we fail together. There's no me on a project, there's an us. And one of the keys of selecting the right contractor, as you'll see as we keep moving through these slides, is selecting a contractor not just based on their price, but there's other factors that you need to consider when you're selecting that contractor. And one of them is chemistry, and we'll talk about that. Once you get a contractor on board and you've got that right chemistry, I mean, you guys, if you've ever been on a project, you can kind of almost feel it when things aren't going right between your team. And that part of that is because people just select the cheapest contractor. And we're going to talk about how to get the best, lowest qualified contractor, but not make it just based on price. So why is this all important? I'm not sure why my slide is not showing. Oh, there they are. So why it's important is the contractor is one of the key players on the team. You're not going to get your project built without him. So whether you have an architect, a construction manager on the team, a group of consultants, the contractor is probably one of the key players. And you guys are going to spend a lot of time together on this project. Some of my projects, that Television Academy project, took about 2.5 years from start to finish to do that project. That's a long time to live with each other. So as I just mentioned before, you're going to spend a lot of time together, and you're going to have that chemistry has got to be there. Your contractor is going to make or break your project. No doubt about it. You get the wrong guy on there, you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to be fighting all the way through the project. The contractor also makes up the largest cost of the project. Architectural costs, and now you may say, well, land acquisition costs, things like that are large costs, but the projects that I've done, the largest cost on the project has been the actual hard cost of construction on the project, not soft costs like architectural costs, permits, things like that. They make up a very small portion of the project. And the impacts of picking a wrong contractor are manifold. It just makes for you're going to have to get your project done, and you don't want to live through misery every day with that contractor because you chose the wrong one. So my 4 simple steps that I use is I boil it down into a very simple, the typical who, what, when, and how. And by answering those 4 questions, you're going to be able to pick the right contractor. So the first question I think is very important is, what will your contractor build? And the reason that's important is you need to define the project scope, because without a clear definition of that project scope, you're not going to know he's not going to know what he's going to be pricing. And there's going to be a lot of confusion during the project. So it's very important to clearly define that project scope. And what I create is called a basis of budget. It's really just a listing of the scope of that project in a very detailed fashion. And once again, you folks may not get to that level in the position that you're in the project, but somebody needs to create that basis of budget that outlines everything that's going to be done in that project. The excavation, the demolition, the concrete, the exterior skin on the building, things like that. It all needs to be defined very clearly, not just on the drawings, but also in this document that I'm talking about. And the other thing that defines what they will build are contract exhibits. And we'll talk about contracts in the next few slides, but several of the things that you want to make sure gets into the contract is a list of drawings and specifications. What's the date on them? What's the sheet number? What's the name of the drawing? Are there any addendum numbers, bulletins, things like that? And specifications, outlines in verbal form, list of materials, types of materials, names of materials that you might want on your drawing. So all that needs to be listed very clearly on an exhibit in your contract. The other thing that you want to make sure you have in the contract is a list of inclusions and exclusions. Inclusions, everybody looks through them and they say, well, yeah, it looks like they got everything covered. But what I spend more time doing is looking at the exclusions, because those are the things that are going to potentially come back and be the gotchas. And so I scrutinize those. I want to find out if the contractor is not including that, who is? Because if it's work that somebody's got to do, then we need to know who that is. Is it a subcontractor? Is it the owner that's got to do that? So it's very important to focus in on the exclusions. And the other thing that you're going to have in that contract exhibit is a baseline schedule, which is going to tell you when the contractor is going to have your project complete. So we need to make sure that what they're going to build is clearly defined. Okay. So once step one's complete, you're going to move on to step two, and that is when to select your contractor. Now, there's two ways to approach this step. First of all, you want a list of qualified bidders. And what is a qualified bidder? Well, for example, if you've worked with a contractor before and you like what they've done for you, and they've built the type of project that you're going to build, I'd put them on the qualified bidder list. There's a good chance that you're going to get a good result from them if they're the one that's selected. But for example, if you have an apartment building project and the contractors that are interested in it have never built a large 384 unit apartment building before, chances are you don't want to let them cut their teeth on your project and let your project be their experiment. So make sure your contractors have done the type of project that you're asking them to bid on. The Television Academy was a good example. I wanted a contractor or a group of contractors that had worked in the entertainment industry, had a lot of technical knowledge, because the Television Academy was a state-of-the-art facility with Dolby's new Atmos sound system in it. Nobody had ever installed it before. And so the contractors on that list had to have met certain criteria to be able to bid on that job. Now, you might want to think about negotiating with a single contractor. And I know everybody is of the mindset, well, you got to get 3 bids, or how are you going to know whether you're getting the best price on a project? But there are certain instances that I've actually gone to a single contractor, and that happens a lot of times when it's a specialty type project, that there aren't a lot of contractors out there that can do that kind of work. And if you know of a contractor that does that kind of work, the advantages of it are it improves the team collaboration. These contractors can do design assist, which means that they help the architect design the project. It may be so specialized that the architect and the design team needs the expertise of the contractor and subcontractors. And you can oftentimes buy out certain subcontracts early in the process. And the reason you want to do that is if there's long leads on a lot of materials, as we know, the world has become a very different place over the last 3 to 5 years. It's very difficult to get materials because some countries are, there's been embargoes, there's been COVID, there's been all kinds of things that have stalled out getting materials for projects. So if you can buy these things out early, it's a real advantage in getting your project completed faster. So one of the things that that I always do on my projects is I issue what's called a request for proposal to the selected bidders. And I don't know if I don't have an example in this presentation, but it's a formal document that tells the contractors what they're going to be bidding on, what they need to include in their bid, a list of the documents they're going to be bidding on, the format that you want the bid in, because you don't want, if you have 4 or 5 contractors bidding on a job, you don't want a mishmash of different kinds of proposals. You want them to follow your proposal format so it makes it easy for you to go through when it's time to review them. So that's another very helpful thing to have. Another win on selecting your contractor is you want to decide amongst yourselves what kind of a delivery method you want to use. Now, a delivery method is nothing more than how you expect that contractor and the entire process to work. So there's 3 of them here that I'm showing you, and these are the 3 that people use most often on their projects. The first one is the old design, bid, build delivery method. And what that means is the architect and all the engineers design the project, they take up the drawings, they give them to the contractors that are going to bid the project. The contractors go away for a few weeks, work up their price, give it to you, you select a contractor, and then they go out there and start building. And people, a lot of municipalities, government municipalities, especially in the United States, have required this, but they're starting to get a little bit more flexible. And the reason is this is the slowest way to get your project done, because you have to wait to get the design done. Then you have to wait to get the bids. Then you're ready to build. And that takes a long time. The path to get to the building point is very long. So what people came up with back in the 50s, I believe it was, is the concept of design build. And design build just means that you're going to go out and you're going to partner with a contractor to actually help the design process. You would still have an architect, you would still have a structural engineer, you would have a consulting team, but now you have a contractor that's going to help do that design and also get to your budget. So if you have a budget of $5 million and you say, I need a design, I cannot afford to spend any more than $5 million on this project, go. Well, if you go the design, bid, build process, you're not going to know until after the bids whether design is going to get you to $5 million. It may cost you $7 million. And then what do you have to do? You got to go back to the beginning. You got to change the whole design. You got to go out to bid again. And oops, now it's $6 million. You cut a little bit off, but not much. So design, bid, build is not my favorite, as you can tell. Design build is better because the contractor that's part of the building process is also going to help the designers come up with a design that will get to your budget. So you're not going through that endless cycle of redesigning again and pushing your schedule out. And kind of a hybrid of that is a design assist, where in the design build process, the contractor actually takes responsibility for design and building. The architect is giving them a criteria that they need to design to. It needs to be a 5-story building. It needs to have this kind of a curtain wall on it. It needs to have this kind of an interior. but it's up to the contractor to figure out how to design that so it meets that criteria at the owner's budget. A design assist is a little bit different in that an architect and their team designs it, and the contractor assists with that design, but they're not ultimately responsible for the design. The architect and the design team is. So these delivery methods are important for a lot of reasons. First of all, it drives your schedule on the job, and it also helps you get closer to your budget by selecting the right delivery method. So I wanted to bring those up. And once again, we're not even where we're selecting a contractor to build your project yet. The other decision, there's a lot of wins in here. You want to also select your form of contract. And the three contract forms that are typically used are lump sum, guaranteed maximum price, and cost plus. The lump sum contract is where the contractor just says, I'm going to do your project for $5 million. And if they're the lowest qualified contractor, you'll pay the $5 million. Guaranteed maximum price, and by the way, lump sum doesn't give you any visibility into how he came up with that $5 million. He does not have to show you how he came up with that $5 million price. So you don't know whether he's really going to pay out $3 million and pocket the other $2 million, or whether it's going to cost $4,950,000. You have no visibility into it. So a very popular form of contracting is called a guaranteed maximum price contract. Very similar. He's going to guarantee his price, but you have total visibility into the cost, each cost of each trade in that price. So you get to see how much he pays for concrete, how much he's going to pay for paint, roofing, the whole thing. And so you know at the end of the project that you got a fair shake on a fair price on that project. Cost plus is a little risky, but there's many times when you'll want to use cost plus. A lot of times cost plus is used when you don't have a clear scope of the project and you don't have time to bid it out. It may be that you do this with a specialty subcontractor on a project because you need to get going. And so you negotiate a percentage of the cost that will be their fee for the project. So if the cost is $5,000 and you negotiated a fee of 10%, you'll pay them $500 on top of whatever their cost is. And you don't want to do a whole big project like that, but it's a very useful tool to have in your tool bag when you need to keep the project going and you don't have time to stop to bid out the work. You have somebody on the job and they can do it, but you don't want them to go through a 2 or 3 week process of bidding it out. Okay. Finally, off of when. So how do you evaluate your contractor bids? Well, I'm going to tell you how I do it, and it's worked for me for 25 years. One of the things you want to do is use a bid evaluation template, and we'll show you an example here in a second. Contractor interviews are critical. So you'll always want to do a contractor interview process. Who should attend those interviews? It should be the owner. It should also obviously be the contractor, the architect, your construction manager. You'll have to decide who's in there, but those are the minimum people that should be in there. And I want to make sure that you've identified, and this can be done now at this part in the process, or it could be in your initial selection process. What is that contractor's workload? Is he too busy to do your project? If it's coming up in a couple of months and his workload won't allow him to focus on it, it may be that you don't even want him to bid this in the first place. So but ask again after he's gone through this bid process, because things could have changed. Okay. I know this is a little hard to see, and I can't, I don't think I can blow it up anyway. So, what this is this is a general contractor. This is actually one page of 4 pages of the contractor selection analysis that I used for that Television Academy job. And the Television Academy job was a $38 million project. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing $1 million project or a $50 million project, you still should go through the same process of analyzing the contractor bids. This contract was going to be based on a guaranteed maximum price contract, which I talked earlier about. So in a guaranteed maximum price project, the contractor is typically going to charge a fee on top of whatever the cost of the project is. So you can see if it's big enough for you to read. One example is the fee percentage here: 3.5% for W.E. O'Neill, 3.5% for Matt Construction, and 3% for Tectonics. So theoretically, Tectonics would be cheaper because they're only going to charge 3%, where everybody else is going to charge 3.5%. But
Bill, just quick question.
Uh-huh.
That percent is of the construction cost?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if you add up all the construction cost, they're going to charge you a fee based on that construction cost.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there are other costs that contractors will charge you for. Pre-construction cost is one of them. That's item 2. And as you can see, there's a pretty wide spread between what the various bidders wanted to charge for that. Now, pre-construction costs are the contractor's cost to put their estimate together. It used to be the contractors would go, get your set of drawings and say, sure, I'll give you a bid, and I'll do it for free. But times changed because contractors were getting asked to give so many bids out that it became economically unfeasible for them to, to spend the time and the money to go out to bid on these things and have no chance of getting the job. So, they want the owners to have a little skin in the game, and hence they typically charge, especially on the bigger projects, they charge to do that pre-construction. Then they have general conditions and staffing. Those are the cost for the superintendent, the project manager, depending on the project, the job trailer, all of the different things that that they're going to have to spend money on just to do the job. And then the last item there, which is not, once again, this is I think 4 pages long. We wanted to know what the relevant experience was of these contractors, and one of the things was relevant theater and entertainment facilities. So we listed all the projects that each contractor had done in the entertainment sector, and then the other sheets described whether the superintendent had experience on those types of projects. But once again, I spent a lot of time, and we spent a lot of time analyzing this stuff. Sure, it's a big project, but once again, on $1 million project, it's not going to be as extensive as this, but you should be asking the same questions, is my point. But and the reason is you're not going to get another bite at the apple. Once you select this contractor, you're stuck with them. So it's very, very important to spend the time to go through this process.
Bill, for the pre-construction costs, if you pick that contractor, do they put that money against your build?
Well, there's different ways that they do that. Some of them will say, if you select me, I will eat the pre-construction costs. In other words, I will include that in my price.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them won't do that. Some of them will want to charge you
on top of it.
on top of that. So on this project, we did select Matt Construction. They were the best qualified, even though their price wasn't the lowest. And we did pay them $50,000 to do all the pre-construction work on the project. But remember, they're doing a lot of assisting with the design process too. They're meeting with architects, engineers. Their value on the project will save you money if you pick the right guy. They'll pick less expensive ways to build the project. So
it's the planning part of their time and effort to do that analysis up front.
Correct. And in this case, it definitely did pay off. So, yeah, there's a lot to look at. The other thing that we do on every project, you get to the point now where you're ready to select the general contractor. Here's the agenda that I put together for our contractor interviews on the Television Academy. And these are important. I mean, a lot of it is regurgitating what they included in their proposals, like experience on similar projects, company experience, team member experience. But this was as important as the proposals. And the reason why is when we got down to let's see, it was item 4B, use of BIM technology. What that means is BIM is building information modeling. It's a computer software that is used in the industry now to model the building using the software. And it's been around for a while now. It wasn't in 2014. It had probably been around for maybe 4 or 5 years, and a lot of people hadn't jumped on the bandwagon yet. But when it got down to this question, we asked every contractor the same question and paid careful attention to their answers. The contractor that was really the heir apparent to do this project didn't get the job because he didn't use BIM tech and was not able to use BIM technology on the project. And that was such a critical factor in this project that we couldn't select them. We just, it was too big of a factor. So
just a quick question. When you're doing due diligence on contractors, do you ever check to see if they have any outstanding cases against them where they're being sued because they haven't paid or anything like that? Is that part of it?
Yes. One of the questions on the request for proposal that we send out is, do you have any pending litigation? Do you have any, in California, we have, and a lot of states in the United States have a statute called the mechanics lien process, where if you don't pay a contractor what you owe him or her, they can put a lien on your property.
On property, yeah.
Yeah, and they can force you to sell your property in order to perfect that lien. So we want to know if there's any outstanding liens on any projects that they're currently working on. So yeah, we look at Dun & Bradstreet ratings, we look at credit ratings, we examine their financial statements, that sort of thing. And these contractors are, all of the ones that you saw listed on that previous slide, these are big boys. They're in the top, I want to say 100 of all general contractors in the United States. But you're not always going to be able to, choose that quality of contractor for your project, but you can still ask those questions and do your diligence on legal problems, lawsuits pending, liens, things like that. So you should do that. The other thing I want to go through on this is a great story too, because when you meet the team, I did a project for Sony Pictures. This was a separate project, and the client on that project was a real tough guy. I mean, he ruled with an iron fist. Well, we got into the contractor interview process, just like we did on Television Academy. One of the contractors came in, brought his superintendent in, and we talked for a while. And I could tell that my client, Mike, did not like this superintendent. And when we started talking about what people's backgrounds were, where they went to school, those types of things, the superintendent was an ex-Marine. And it was clear that this guy and Mike, my client, were never going to get along. They both had the exact same hard, rough edge personality, and they would have killed each other on this job. And yeah, so we didn't select that contractor on the job for exactly that reason. The contractor was qualified. Other than him, they had a great team. They had a good price. They were, everything was great with this contractor, but the superintendent did not have the chemistry with my client. And so chemistry is such a huge thing on long-term projects. So keep that
It's
in
like a
mind.
marriage, right? So
Yeah,
it's you got to do some
yeah,
dating first.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. You're going to be married for a long time. You're going to be going steady. Yeah. So yeah, that chemistry is everything. But I wanted to tell you that story because it happens. So now that we're here, who do you select? And my bullet points here is it says what's most important to you, and that's a question, because I can't give you a secret formula to tell you who to select. But when you define what's important to you, at least it'll get you in the ballpark. So for example, price. Everybody looks at the price. The very first thing anybody does, every client I've ever had, is they flip through the thing and they look for the price. They look for the proposal and they look for the price. And some of them keel over and they go, oh my God, it's way over my budget. Don't do that, okay? The reason is you haven't looked at anything else yet. You haven't looked at the other bidders. They may have exclusions that are going to cost you money. So you have to take a comprehensive look at that price and select what I call the lowest qualified bidder. So qualified is a very important word because you have to make sure that all the other pieces in that proposal don't add up to more money. One guy may have a higher price, but he's included everything you wanted in that project, and maybe even then some. Maybe he included some things that weren't even on the plan because he knows that the architect left it off. But he knows he's going to have to do it, and he doesn't want to have to come back to the owner for a change order later on, because contractors know that owners hate change orders. So he may have included some of this stuff in there, and you need to find that out by carefully reviewing what he's included and what he's excluded. Don't just scan down for that price and have a heart attack. The other thing that could be important is schedule. You guys are investors, so when are you going to start getting a return on your money? And the schedule is what's going to drive that, obviously. So a contractor that may be able to do a project in 1 year and another guy may be able to do it in 11 months. If he's willing to commit to that, he's going to turn over that project a month earlier to you, the owner / investor, and you're going to start realizing your return on that quicker. So schedule could be a factor that you want to consider. Experience. Don't hire a greenhorn. You don't necessarily want to have somebody on your project that is going to use it for a learning experience. And sometimes that's a little unfair. Depends on the project. All other things being considered, you want to have experience, but it's the age-old adage, how do you get experience unless you hire me? And if you don't hire me, I can't get the experience. You got to kind of feel around that and see whether you feel comfortable with that. Once again, taking all these other factors into consideration. Team chemistry, we've talked a lot about. It's something you probably won't hear from a lot of other construction managers, but I preach it to every client that I ever did a project for. Use of technology, we talked about that. How good are they with technology? Do they need technology? There's a lot of contractors that, and of course, this is technology, but a lot of contractors use Excel for a lot of different things that there are dedicated software programs out there for. So that doesn't mean they can't do a good job just because they're not using the latest technology, but there's some things that they do need to have the right technology for, and that's building information modeling, scheduling software, things like that. They need to be able to use those tools. And then the final thing on this list here is references. You want to check references. If you've worked with them before, that's great. You know what to expect from them. Most of the guys are contractors on the list that I showed you earlier. Matt Construction, I worked for them in 1991 when they first started in business. So I knew them very well. We did the Television Academy in 2014. They had a stellar reputation in the industry. But you're not always going to be in that position. So check references. Obviously, if there's somebody you know that has done a project similar to yours, and they can say, I had a guy that did a great job for me, didn't nickel and dime me to death, got it done on time. That's a good reference. You should reach out to that guy. So let's see, what else do I have here? Okay, I'm going to talk just a minute. We don't want to talk too long on this, because hopefully by selecting the right contractor, you're not going to need to resolve your disputes. You're not going to have a dispute to resolve, but in case you do, this is kind of a bonus lesson on dispute resolution, and it may be different where you are, where your project is and what state or country you're in, but these various dispute resolutions have always worked for me, and I've never gotten down past the first one, which I pride myself on. An executive negotiation just means you take an executive from the contractor and an executive from the owner, you sit down and you work it out. You don't want it to go any further. You don't want to go to litigate. You don't want to go anywhere else with this. You want to keep your job moving. You sit down and you negotiate whatever dispute you guys have with each other. I had a client, large private equity firm, who had a very bad temper, got mad at a plumbing subcontractor on a huge job, $55 million job. And on principle, he fired the plumber. I was sitting right there and he fired him because the cost of each toilet was too much. $55 million project. Delayed the project by 2 months, and all of it because the guy was charging too much for the cost of a toilet. You don't want to get to that point. You want to negotiate it, solve it, and move on. The next one is a project neutral. Now that is just a person that's an outside third party, has no interest in the project. It's not even a construction manager like me, but there are people out there called project neutrals that will step in, look at what the dispute is about, and advise the team as to how to proceed forward with it. That's also a good method. It's inexpensive and it keeps the job moving. The third one we have in the United States and California is called judicial reference. That's a process where typically a retired judge acts as an intermediary, kind of as a project neutral, and he or she has a background typically in construction resolution disputes, dispute resolution. That is another good option. It kind of keeps the job moving, and it's a non-binding thing, but it helps people kind of break through that difficult mindset where they won't even sit down and talk with each other. So then the last three are what I call the eights, because each one ends with the letters ATE, eight, mediate, arbitrate, litigate. I've never had to eight before in my life. I've never had to mediate. I've never had a project go to arbitration, and I've never had to litigate. I've never had to sit in a deposition. And I pride myself on that. And I don't want to just pat myself on the back, but I believe so strongly in resolving disputes using executive negotiations and at the job level, because when you get down to the last three items there, nobody wins. It delays the job, it costs more money, nobody gets paid what they're worth except for the attorneys. So they're a way of resolving the dispute, but in my mind, they're methods of last resort. Always try to use those first couple. It'll serve you well in the long run. So that is what I wanted to talk about today. I'll give you back my screen here, your screen, Debbie, and let's see here.
Yeah, just stop sharing.
Let's see how I'm going to do this.
At the top.
Up here, there.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
So we lost Kim, but she says it was pretty cool. She thought really great information. I just wondered if Brandon or Lori or Winnie has any questions.
I hope, yeah.
Brandon, you need to come off mute if you're trying to. There you go.
I'm curious from a judging bids point of view on different costs. Do you get comfort out of having people bid in the same range? That, you know, this is how much a project's going to cost, and like outliers, like if everyone bids within like 10%, does that like give you a like, okay, this is probably what this is going to cost? Whereas if you bid on a job and everyone was like way across the board, say you had like a 30% spread between the lowest and the highest, would you feel confident in any of the numbers based on that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brandon. Well, when the numbers are close, it tells me, well, when they're close or far away, it tells me a few things. Number one, it tells me whether or not the documents that the bidders were bidding off of were good drawings or clearly identified the scope of work. Because if they weren't, you're going to get bids all over the map because people don't know what they're pricing up and they're guessing at it. So that's one thing it tells me. If they're all close together, it means that the bidders, who most general contractors will subcontract out, you know, to the bigger trades anyway. They're not going to do the work. So if they sub it out to a concrete contractor, a structural steel contractor, you know, all the various subcontractors, most of the, even in Los Angeles area, which is where I typically work, most general contractors are going out to the same guys, right? I mean, there's only, you know, a finite group of people that are qualified to do some of these projects. So you see the same subcontract names on a lot of the bidders lists. Like I've used this guy for concrete and I've used that guy for steel and this guy for demo. So they're all going out to the same guys, and you really don't want to see any subcontractors giving different prices to different contractors. That means they're kind of showing favoritism. So, you know, that kind of creates a level playing field. Once again, as long as those contractors or the drawings are good. If they're not good, then you could get contractors looking at different scopes of work, and then the general contractor says, well, I don't think the scope of work was very complete on the drawings. I need to throw an extra 10% on top of this trade to kind of cover the changes, or if you get a guy on board early on, the drawings might not be that complete. And as they evolve, the cost could go up. So the contingency that is put into that project can vary widely between contractors. So that might be another reason that you might see a disparity in prices. But if they're within, 5 to 10%, I get a good feeling that I'm getting good competitive bids from not only the general contractor, but also the subcontractor. When they're off like 30%, I get scared. And I tell the owner, either the low guy made a mistake, he left something out, or the high guy just doesn't want to do this job and he's put a bunch of money in it. He wants to keep us happy, so we'll ask him back again, but he's not serious about this thing. So it may be the guy that's in the middle that you really want to talk to and kind of find out, all right, well, why is he in the middle here? The low guy, there's a good chance he left something out. Yeah, when you leave a bunch of money on the table like that, chances are you're going to be getting hit with a bunch of change orders over the course of the job. So, and then, you know where that goes. You're fighting with them. So I know it's kind of a long answer, but I like seeing the bids close together. It gives me a good comfort feel.
Yeah, that makes sense, Bill. I mean, for me right now, I'm going to be having to, I've got insurance, like bringing in 2 bids, and my builder is going to have a bid because they're having to rebuild my home from fire, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so this is really good to be learning all of this for me because
Yeah, there's quite a bit of things that as you're going into your projects that I didn't talk about today.
Mhm.
I mean, this could be and in fact is a 1-month course. But you want to know if your contractor's insurance has insurance. Is he licensed? Most of the bigger contractors are going to be licensed. They're going to have insurance. If you wanted to have them get a surety bond or a performance bond or a payment bond, they'd be able to do that. That's a sign of financial solvency to ask them if they can bond. We ask that on our proposals. So there's different ways of judging whether you're getting the right guy in there. The other thing that I didn't mention, I wanted to mention, is questions come up. Should I sign the contractor's proposal, or should I make them sign my contract? I'm not usually real comfortable advising my clients to sign a contractor's proposal. And the reason why is it's going to be slanted towards the contractor. It's not going to be slanted towards the owner. So if you want to protect yourself, you want to use a contract that uses a framework that protects the owner and has clauses and provisions in there that protect you, that give you the right. For example, if your contractor is not performing, that you can throw him off the job for convenience if he's not doing the job. That he will pay if you're having a dispute on the project. He won't just walk off the job and leave you high and dry. He's required by contract to continue to work on that project while you're resolving that dispute or that change order, whatever it is. Those are important clauses, and you're not going to find a contractor that has his own contract, especially the smaller guys, are going to have those provisions in there. They would never do that because they shoot themselves in the foot. So yeah, I don't normally do that. If I do hire consultants, like I just hired a geotechnical engineer and a guy to do underground utility mapping on a project. And I scrubbed their contracts and marked them up and had them take things out that I didn't want in there, which they did. They weren't difficult about it. But then I advised my client it's okay to sign these. So you have to know. I mean, if you have an attorney that you trust or you use, have him take a look at your contractor's contract. It may be that he just wants to make some changes, but get those exhibits in there that I mentioned. You know, you're going to get the pricing in there, you're going to get the scheduling in there, you're going to get the set of documents they're bidding off of in there. You want to have all those exhibits in there. So he can never come back and say, well, that wasn't in the drawings. Well, you can go back to the drawings then, and you can open up those drawings and say, it was right here. There's another provision. I know I'm getting off on contracts, and I don't mean to, but there's another one that you want to look at it in contracts that I use. It's called reasonably inferable. And you'll never remember that. But what that means is drawings can sometimes be unclear as to what the architect had in mind to build. And the contractor will say, well, it wasn't really clear on the drawings, that's what you wanted. So if you want me to do that, it's going to cost $5,000 or $50,000. There's a provision, a section in the contracts I use that says if it was reasonably inferable that you were going to have to do this work, then you're not going to get a change for it. And all that means is if you were a contractor that was going to build this in a workmanship-like manner, you're experienced, you know that you're going to have to put a window in this opening here. Maybe he didn't call out the window material or the actual size, but you knew he was going to have to put a window in there. That's reasonably inferable. You got the window, dude. You're not getting any more money for it. So contracts are also another whole thing to understand for owners, and depending how hands-on investors are in their projects, them too, because by private equity firms that I represented, they were very involved with the contracts.
So what you're saying is, even like, you know, for some of us that are doing land development or you know, some of the bigger projects, we really should be not just getting a lawyer to when it comes to like the money, the raising part of things, but we should be getting lawyers to look over our contracts with our contractors.
Correct.
Right.
I really advise that if you have a construction manager on board, if the project's big enough to warrant that, have him take a pass at it with your attorney, because some attorneys are not as well versed in construction law. I mean, the ones that you guys are using, maybe they are. But when I did the project for the Television Academy, their attorney was used to entertainment law and also a little bit of real estate law, but he wasn't an expert in construction law. So I worked very closely with him on the contract for the Television Academy project. So yeah, it just depends on what your attorney's specialty is.
That's a good point, Bill. The difference too, I mean, many of us have like real estate investor focused lawyers, but they may not be construction lawyers. So there, that may be, you know, the difference there that needs to be looked at. Awesome. Thank you so much, Bill. You've given us so much to think about, so much great information.
If you don't mind, what I'd like to do, Debbie, is put in the chat my email address.
Yes, please do.
I do have a course coming out at the end of October, and it's something that everybody might be interested in taking a look at. If you send me your email address, I will get you some information on that and let you know more particulars on the course. So if you don't mind me doing that.
Yeah. Bill, if you could send me like your link to your calendar or your email address, I will pop it in the Facebook Live also, where I'm sharing for people to get in contact with you. I think what Bill's doing is very similar to I am. He's doing a pilot program. So, you know, if you can get in now, this is the time, because after now, that's it. The price goes up.
Yeah, that's true. And I once again want to thank you all for listening. I hope I was able to, if nothing else, put some questions in your mind, give you some answers, but also give you some questions to ask on your next project. Just be more informed. I guess that's important, no matter where you are in this team. Just, you know, be aware and ask questions. There is no bad question, except the one you don't ask.
Good. And I also have your presentation, so I will also share that in
Great,
to everybody, so that
great.
they
And if
have
there's any
that to back up.
questions, and anybody wants to email me a question, feel free to do so.
Awesome. Thank you
All
so much.
right.
This is great. We
You're
got,
welcome.
I mean, even whether it's Canadian or American, we got, it's the same sort of things going on that we got to cover. And for those that are interested in US development, you know, like number one, you've got a contact now in the US through Bill.
There you go.
So, and also,
Come to
you
Los
know,
Angeles, come to
yeah,
Southern
and we got
California.
some, you know, US specific information here too. So awesome. Thank you so much, Bill.
Okay, great.
Have a
Thanks again,
wonderful
everybody.
evening. Take care,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.